What's up, everyone? Aaron Schatz here, Editor-in-Chief of ASE Publishing, and today we've got another review for you. This time, it's the Kingston HyperX Alloy FPS RGB, and yes, we know we are actually releasing this review well within the time that we said that we would. So, this is review ID 63677. You can check out this and all our reviews by going to www.aselabs.com, or, and even better, you can go down here and click the subscribe button on YouTube right now. It's red, it says subscribe. You hit that, be informed of all the reviews that we post. In addition to that, if you don't have time to watch our very full, very long reviews, you can actually do two things. Number one, there's a 1-minute review of almost every product we review these days. So if you click, I think there's going to be a little icon that's an eye in one of these corners that says 1-minute review. Click it. You get a very condensed 1-minute review, basically an overview of the product, you know, very, very light on what we think about it, but you still got to come back and watch the full review to get the full details. If you don't even want to listen to an actual video, we actually have a textual summary of what we think of a product right in the description below. There's a link to ASE Labs right now. You click that, you can watch the actual 2 reviews in its place right there, the 1-minute review and the video review that you're watching right now, and you can actually see the text summary as well. So if you're at work or something and you want to actually, well, if you're at work, you probably should just work and probably watch the videos. You probably go on Facebook and stuff anyway, whatever. You're on YouTube right now, right? So if you're at work and you don't want to actually disturb anybody, click the text summary below, read about it and stuff, then come back, watch the full review, or watch the 1-minute review, then watch the full review. Either way, you're going to have to watch the full review to get the full details of any product we review. We like to do in-depth reviews. That's what you're watching right now, so let's get into this. If you haven't seen the unboxing, I'm going to save you the trouble right now. You basically get the keyboard itself, some literature, and there's probably some more literature in the box I'm forgetting, and a mini USB cable plugs into the keyboard right here. And if you see on this cable, it actually has 2 USB-A plugs that you plug in. Go into that a little bit later. Cable length, 6 foot. I'm 6'2", so my arm span should be a little bit more, which it is. So it's a 6-foot cable. Might want to fact check that. Before I get started on the actual keyboard itself, I actually want to show you this little guy right here. So this is the actual HyperX memory foam wrist pad that they actually sent along with it. And normally I'm just like, yeah, whatever, it's a memory foam pad, whatever. I always use a wrist pad when I actually use a keyboard. So I was yelled at one time at a conference to never use the actual feet of the keyboard, because it makes the actual wrist angle that you're typing, you know, come up, and your wrist should be flat. So you should get as flat as possible on the actual desk itself. So I like a wrist rest because it raises my wrists, keeps my wrist at a neutral angle, which is good. Now this one is actually really interesting because normally I'm just like, it's a wrist rest, whatever, who cares, right? This one is actually really comfortable, and not only that, it's memory foam, and everybody's like, it's memory foam. This also has cooling memory foam in it, and I noticed it instantly. I was using a very old wrist rest before, and you really notice a difference. Now, I'm not going to say run out and buy this, but if you don't have a wrist rest, this one is pretty damn good. The actual wrist rest itself costs about $20. It may seem expensive, but it's not. If you actually price wrist rests like in your general vicinity, if you go to like office stores and stuff, or any of those type of things, $20 is not really that much more to spend. It might have a little bit of a premium, but honestly, this is actually well worth the price. I would buy this if I didn't get this sent. But again, it's one of those things where you have to actually try it and be like, oh wow, this is actually really worth it. So it's one of those things where I'm just telling you, my opinion on the matter is, if you use wrist rests like I do, something like this is actually really great. I think this is a well-designed wrist rest, especially with the cooling memory gel in it. I like it a lot, but this is not the focus of this review, so you can take that with a grain of salt, make your decision on whatever you want to do with the wrist rest. Let's get into the actual keyboard. Here is the HyperX Alloy FPS RGB. If you remember our original Alloy FPS review, you remember that it's pretty much had cherry, I think it was MX red or MX brown, so it had cherry switches. So that's that. These are very different switches, and they're called Kale switches, I think it's pronounced. Or Kale, it's like K-A-I-L-H, Kale, whatever. It's got different kind of switches. They are like the reds or the blacks where they have a linear actuation. There's no bump where you hear a click, so they're actually fairly quiet. One thing about this keyboard is that the the actual like actuation point is really, really precise. It's like a millimeter, I think, or even a little bit less. I actually found myself, when I'm actually typing and I stop typing, I'll like rest my fingers on the keyboard sometimes, like on a key, just to hold it there. And I found myself actually pressing the key. That's how, you know, accurate and precise the actual key is at actually like pressing itself. So it actually activates on a very, very hair, like that much. I know you can't see it, but it's like, it's really, really, you don't have to slam the keys, is basically what it means. You can actually just do like really light typing and it'll actually work just fine. I've done that. Again, all these keyboards take a little bit of getting used to, but once you're actually used to it, it's actually a really nice thing. And normally I kind of like shy away from any things that are not like cherry switches, but these feel really good. They feel like red. I mean, they feel different, don't get me wrong, they feel different than the red switches because that actuation point is really high, but once you get used to it, it's really nice. The other difference, obviously, is the RGB lighting of the keyboard. Now, let me stop right here. Let me stop you right here. If you already have a mechanical gaming keyboard, like, I don't know, the Alloy FPS, the non-RGB one, or if you have the Alloy Elite or something like that, I'm not going to tell you to run out and buy another keyboard. If you have a mechanical keyboard that you like already and you don't care about the lighting, don't even watch this review. Don't even watch the review. I'm not going to tell you to run out and buy a mechanical gaming keyboard if you already have one and you already like it. Stick with something that you like. Remember when I said the original Alloy FPS? I'm going to put this on the actual desk right here. You could see that this keyboard, very low profile, it basically looks like a standard keyboard. One of the things I liked about HyperX's design is that they don't overemphasize the fact that it's a gaming keyboard with all these crazy extensions on the sides and stuff and make the keyboard huge. Remember that this is not only going to be used for gaming. Now, everybody may be buying this specifically to game, but they're also going to be using this for productivity, for general computer use too. You don't want a huge, giant keyboard taking up your entire desk space, so something like this is actually much appreciated. If you compare this to a lot of other keyboards that are in the gaming category, you'll see like, you know, tons of extra keys and all the stuff on the top here and all the stuff on the sides here. Honestly, for most people, barring the people that like play MMOs and they need tons of macros and stuff, this is going to be fine for you. Now, if you are the type of player that has like, you know, plays MMOs all the time, has like, you know, 20 different macros that you want to set up, something like this may not be that good for you because you want those extra keys and stuff. But again, this is for people that want to do, you know, gaming and stuff, need the quick actuation points, you know, anti-ghosting, all the standard stuff. Doesn't have all the actual macro keys that you want if you're an MMO gamer, but I don't think most people are these days, so there you go. Let's turn to the actual top of the actual keyboard itself. You can see this is the actual, not micro, mini USB port right here. So basically this guy plugs into here just like this. The cable, by the way, is braided, which is nice, but it's a keyboard cable, so theoretically, if it was rubberized, it would be fine as well. This port right here is interesting. So if I remember correctly, on the original Alloy FPS, this was a charging port, and on this one, it is also a charging port, meaning that if you have a mouse that you plug in USB, it will not work on here. Period. This is charging only, which kind of boggles my mind because I think pass-through is way more useful than charging. But again, it's probably a cost factor, and it was probably to make sure that the keyboard remained this size. If you know that the Alloy FPS Elite, or it's the Alloy Elite, I don't remember, the bigger version of this keyboard has a little bar on top, that might do a lot of extra stuff, and that one actually has pass-through. So that's something to think about. So remember that I remember when I originally reviewed the original keyboard that had red lighting only, and I was plugging stuff in here without reading anything about it, and I was like, why isn't this working? And it's because this is charging only. So that's one thing you got to think about. This is a charging only cable, and it actually has a little icon up here that is charging only. On the bottom of the actual keyboard, or I guess this is the back of the keyboard, we'll say, you have 2 feet. Don't suggest using them. 2 rubber feet on the bottom. Keyboard's not going anywhere. It's pretty good, pretty heavy keyboard. It's not that heavy for carrying, but like, this is metal. This is metal here, metal. It's actually a very, very sturdy keyboard. Metal on the top, plastic on the back, so it's not that heavy. But like, very sturdy keyboard, very little, there's like no flex in the keyboard at all. And once it's down, it's not moving on the actual table itself. one other thing I want to show you. So one of the cool things about mechanical keyboards is you can actually clean them. And you might be saying, I never clean my keyboard. You really might want to clean your keyboards if you have them for a very long time. You can actually just take a vacuum and just vacuum out the keys and stuff. But if you have like really gunked up grime in there, one of the cool things about a mechanical keyboard is you can actually just take a key and pop it off. So I just popped that escape key off, and you see these kale switches or whatever. Nice little gray look, and they're the actuation. It's a linear actuation, and you can see that it's all nice, and you can see the LED at the top right here, right there. You see a little LED at the top, and to put them back on, you just pop it back on. I believe they're the same size as the MX switches, so you can actually take keys off of another keyboard and pop them on here if they're the same size keys. Again, might want to fact check me on that, and I wouldn't suggest doing it because this keyboard works fine. Leave the keys as they are. One thing I generally don't like about keyboards that are standard like this is that a lot of the functionality is hidden behind a function key. For instance, the volume control is hidden behind this function key, meaning you have to press function and then hit F9 for mute, and then all the multimedia keys, which I barely never use anyway. But like, to me, the volume control should always be right there for the keyboard. Like if I want to mute, I should be able to hit mute immediately. So that's one thing I don't like about this type of keyboard when they actually smash all the functionality in there. However, I'm going to show you in a little bit how we can actually get around that. One of the things I don't like about a lot of gaming keyboards is the requirement of software to be used on a computer. Now, most people know, if you've been watching my reviews, that I am a Linux guy. I have not run Windows personally for, I don't even know, 12 years now. I've used Windows from time to time when I need to do reviews or, need to test something and stuff. So, I use Windows when I need to from time to time, but my daily use does not use Windows at all. So I appreciate when keyboards do not use software to actually get anything done, because generally the software only works on Windows, and that sucks. A lot of the software doesn't even work on Mac, which is, also lame as well. That is the case with this keyboard, but not the only case. So the interesting part about this keyboard is that there is a actual memory on here to actually store all the information. So you only need to do a setup once and then store it on the keyboard, and once it's actually stored, you can actually plug this into any other computer without software, and it works absolutely fine. It's actually a really interesting thing, and even though I don't like that you have to use Windows to set this up at least once it's set up, it actually works the same way in every other computer without having the software. And that's actually cool. Now, because if you think about a lot of other companies, they'll have software that has to always be running, or the keyboard just doesn't work in the full functionality. This one, let's just say you're a Linux user like me and you refuse to run Windows. You can probably have a friend that has Windows, right? Go over to his house, install the software, set up the keyboard however you want, download the profiles to it, unplug it, go back to your house, never have to use Windows again. I know. You're probably thinking, well, I never want to use Windows entirely. I've actually asked HyperX to actually maybe post specifications on how the actual communication protocol of this works, but I'm not sure they'll do it. And I've also said you should provide software for Linux and Mac. Not sure they're going to do that either, because the market share is not that big. But I did ask, so there you go. And if you're a Linux user and you want to buy something like this, you should send them feedback too, because the more feedback they have, the better product decisions they can make. With that in mind, the keyboard initially had 3 profiles set up. And those 3 profiles were actually pretty good. One was I actually don't remember what they were now because I already reset it. But basically there was 3 profiles already set up. So if you didn't want to use any software, the lighting patterns of the keyboard are actually pretty good. I kept them for a really long time until I actually broke down and tried this. So the interesting part is that I actually used VirtualBox software to actually install Windows on a virtual machine on my computer, and then actually did all the configuration in there. So that actually works fine, as long as you actually do the USB stuff, the pass-through for the USB for the actual VM box on there. VirtualBox did it fine, so if you want to use VirtualBox, you can do that too. You can download Windows 10 ISO from Microsoft, totally legit. You can install it and then erase it. No product key required. Don't pirate Windows, that's stupid. Use Linux instead. That being said, I really do want to show you how the actual software works, and then I'll show you what the actual end result of that software is. So let's retool things and let's go on the computer real quick.
we've switched gears and now we're on the actual computer, and unfortunately I have to use Windows to show you this. But the good thing is that this actually works in a VM, so I have this on VirtualBox on one of my Linux machines, basically my main Linux machine, which is the only one I use. So just downloaded a Windows ISO from Microsoft, temporarily going to use it and then delete it, because the good thing about this software and the keyboard, as I said before, is that once everything is set up on the keyboard actually has all the information. You don't need to use any software. So it's only a one-time setup, or every time you want to make a change, you just go in, make the change, download it to the keyboard, and you're good to go. You can unplug it, use it on Linux, Mac, whatever, uses USB devices, and it just works fine. So to get started, I will say something about the software. It is relatively rough, meaning like it's intuitive. There's no question that it's fairly intuitive, but you can tell like it's a little bit rough around the edges. It's not like, it's not as graceful as a company that would be doing like applications all the time. But for the purpose of what it's built for, it's absolutely fine. So to get started, you'll actually see things like this. When you actually install the software and you see the keyboard for the first time, it's going to have the 3 modes set up, and they're going to all be listed as default. They'll all be on here. So what I actually ended up doing was just creating 3 profiles for each of my actual profiles. Now you can create more and keep switching them. So you can actually have like 30 different profiles, and then save them, and then when you want to change them, just load them up. To load them up basically is like, so like this one right here, if I hover over it, says 1. And then this one says 2. I'm very creative here. 3. So if you wanted to actually change something, you could just drag this like default here. You have to click it and then hold that down and then drag it to here, and it'll be in the 3rd spot now. See, it's going. I know you can't see this, but as soon as there it goes on my keyboard. So now if I switch back to 1, 2, and then 3, 3 is now rainbow again. And that's all nice and great. I like rainbow a lot. Might have to change that back eventually to someplace else. But we'll change 3 back to 3. You have to click this, then click this, and hold it down, and then drag it here. This is the nuances that I meant about like the application's a little rough. Again, they'll get used to it, and most gamers will have no problem figuring out how to actually like navigate their way around this. So once you actually have setups and stuff that you want, let's just take 1 for instance. 1 is my default setup that I use all the time. So you could see if I show you 1 basically says if I hit this control key, it's going to light up in different color for a little bit. So how do you do that? Well, let's hit customize. Hit the 1, hit customize, and then we'll see what's going on. All right. This is basically how you actually customize the actual keyboard. Now, there's a few different sections here. Number 1 is effects, number 2 is zones, number 3 is freestyle. So freestyle is something if you wanted to actually say like, oh, I want to set every key in individual color, and that's great. I really don't want to do that. So you could feel free to do that. So like, for instance, I could set let's choose this blue one. You got to hit that and then hit a key. See, and it turns blue. And that's it. And you can hit this purple right here, and then you can hit this one here, and hit this V right there. I don't think that's great. I think that's very useful if you wanted to have every single key that's different color and stuff, and that's all great. But honestly, if you look at it, this is not that great because each key still has a single color. And for some people that might be great. But if you wanted to do something, oops, I didn't want to do that. Cancel. So let's go back to zones. So this is an example of something I set up on another profile of mine. But since it's been already set up, these zones already exist. So if you could see that I have keys assigned to specific zones, and you can see like the rest, MISC keys, which are these, and WASD, arrow keys. I think this is way more useful. So you can actually say like, oh, the number pad, I want to assign a different color. I want to assign purple. So I click this. I'll drag that bad boy over there. Boom, done. So you see now that the number keys are purple. So that's how that works. But I like them green. So let's go back to green. Put them over here. Put that. Oh, you gotta wait. This is the intuitiveness again. So I think this and then that. Nope. This and then that. There you go. You got to click this, then click that. Okay, that's right. That's again, Even even I forget how to actually do this from time to time. But eventually you'll figure it out. Again, these are little nuances that I've been mentioning too. So like again, gamers, you'll probably have no problem figuring out what the little nuances to do this. But again, you could just tell that it's like a slightly less polished type of application. Works fine, just got to get over those little nuances. So the one that I like the best is actually the regular effects one. So I generally like my keyboard to have a solid color most of the time, because if I'm doing general productivity stuff or whatever, even gaming, I want to have like regular, nice, even keys, nothing really taking my focus away. So that's what I have here. But with a keyboard like this, I do want to have some sort of like visual flair. So what I did was I actually set up something like this. So I'm going to show you some of the standard things. Like you have breathing, right? Oh yeah, that's great. Everybody knows what breathing is. I don't think breathing is that useful for anything. But whatever. Wave, everybody understands what the wave is. Now, wave under effects is a rainbow wave, which is interesting enough, and it's some people may like that. Remember, like when RGB keyboards first started coming out, that was like the big thing to have, like the rainbow wave just going back and forth with the keyboard. So there you go, you can have that. You can have trigger, which actually I'll show you how that works on a later thing. And explosion, the flame, and cycle. So cycle is basically cycling through the actual colors. Instead of like wave, it's actually cycling. So let's go to solid, and I'll show you how the trigger actually works in the way that I think it works best. So trigger means that if you actually push a key, something's going to happen. So if you see here, I have my solid color as red for the actual entire keyboard, and that's great. And I have my trigger set to a random color of anything. So like if I hit this control key on the left, which you'll see right here, you can see that it turned like blue and then went back to red. So you can see if I click a lot of keys, they all do random things. And I like that a lot. I'll show you this when we actually go back, and I'll show you the keyboard itself later. But like it allows a lot of cool things. So like explosion is very interesting. I don't find it that useful because basically it takes the entire keyboard into effect. So like if I hit the left control, boom. I like that a lot. I do, but I just think it's a lot less useful than the trigger, because the entire keyboard just starts freaking out, which may entice a lot of people, and that's fine. If you want to do you. That's great. Same color choices exist. You can have a single color, random color, dual colors, change the actual speed. All that's fine. So like, say if I wanted to have the speed really quick, boom, goes really quick, and that's fine. But no, I like trigger. And we can also do the HyperX Flame. So the HyperX Flame is what I would consider like in between the craziness of explosion and then trigger. So the flame, if I hit the right control, actually I'll hit the right alt. You can see like, oh, it's like a little flame that shoots up from the bottom to the top of the keyboard. See that? Nice little effect. It's up to you. I've used it from time to time, but to me, trigger is the best one to use. So that's what I'm going to stick with. Now, I already explained what zones are. I like zones a lot. I actually have them on one of the other setups and stuff. Freestyle, yeah, you do you. You do you on the freestyle. Now, for zones, you still get the base things over here, but you don't get the actual triggering stuff that you would, like on the effects. So the effects are keyboard wide. Zones are pretty much, the keyboard keys are going to stay one color the entire time. So I'll show you, even if you hit like wave, see the wave is actually just turning off and on the keys. So it's slightly different. Now, the keyboard is very customizable, but if you actually set all the colors, you are going to get a little less flexibility in terms of like the actual lighting effects. So that's why effects actually exist, to actually have those really fancy, lighting effects that most people expect with a keyboard of this kind of caliber. Especially when they see like demos. Again, those demos that actually show like this. This is like the standard demo where you see like, oh, you're like, oh my god, that's freaking awesome. It's a little less useful when you're actually using the keyboard though. So let's go back to solid. So that's that. I'm gonna go back. I'm not gonna apply this. I'm just gonna go back here. I want to show you. Here's my the one where I chose to actually, I didn't do a wave. I just did like the cycle one. I like the cycle because like it's all the same thing, and I like it a lot. And this one I think I did explosion. Yep, look at that. So you get to choose whatever you want. But I'm going to show you something very interesting too. So I'm going to show you what I did for number 1. Remember that I was complaining about that before I do that, here's my setup for zones. So like if I actually put this in number 3, and I'll show you all this again when it actually goes onto the physical keyboard in a little bit. So if I actually go here and I hit customize, you could see it's exactly the same thing. I actually have these zones set up and I assign colors to them, and that's basically it. And once it's in there, it's in there. They don't really do anything. There's no like, touch a key and the keys change. Like zones are it. Zones in freestyle, there's no real changing of the colors when you push keys and stuff. So that's that. Now, game mode, not that impressive. Basically it says like if you turn the game mode on, which is this key up here, the function and this key up here, basically says you want to do this. I don't care about that. I use Linux. Tough, most people, you want to disable that, it's up to you. I don't think it's useful. What I do think is useful is macros, and I'm going to show you what I did on profile 1. So if we go to macros, now you could set up macros right here. So let's just say that you wanted to do like, I want to hit 1, 2, 3, and 4 in sequence. So you just have a new macro, and then you hit record, and you do 1, 2, 3, 4, stop, boom. So now my macro's set up, and you can name it whatever you want. I'm not going to because I'm lazy. And then you can actually assign that in this thing right here. What is also very interesting about this is you can actually override keys to send other keys or other things. So if you see these 3 in red right here, now you may be thinking, what are you going to do with like F9, F10, and the F11? Remember how I complained that all these, the volume controls are hidden behind a function key? Well, you can actually override F9. So I said F9, I'm going to do a CM into a multimedia key, and it's going to be mute volume. So now I don't actually hit the function key. The problem with that is that means I can't ever click F9. But it's a small price to pay to show you how to actually do this. Now this is the type of keyboard where I actually think like a couple of dedicated macro keys scattered around the keyboard would actually be really interesting if they didn't actually take up a lot of space on the keyboard, like around the arrow keys and stuff. I think that would be really interesting to see this, because you can use those keys to perform, a set number of actions or a specific action of your choice, and it would be embedded in the keyboard without having to run software. I think that would be really powerful. Hopefully a, little tip for a future revision of the product here. But as you can see that I have assigned, go away. So as you can see, F10, volume down, F11, volume up. So now I don't even need to actually do the functions and stuff there. So that's pretty much the software in a nutshell. It's, you can customize it however you want. All these profiles are pretty easy. You basically create a new profile here if you want to. You can copy it and, transfer and all that cool stuff. But basically, once this profile exists and you hit apply, it sends it to the keyboard, and then you can actually use the keyboard on another computer without any software, and it works absolutely fine, same exact way. Nothing has changed on the keyboard. So that's pretty much an overview of the software. Now we'll head back to the actual physical world and continue this review.
We are back to the actual physical world now. Pardon the lighting. I've specifically turned off most of the actual lights here to actually show you how nice the keyboard actually is when it's actually lit. So right now, if you see that there are, let me go to a mode that's going to keep it, put this to number 1, okay? It's my favorite mode, red, always my favorite color. So I'm going to put the brightness all the way down. There's 4 levels of brightness, so you have nothing, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have basically 5 levels of brightness, I would say then. You have off, 1, 2, 3, 4 brightness. This is the brightest it actually gets. It's actually pretty bright now. So that's that. Now let's go into the actual modes that we actually set up together on the actual computer, or the ones I actually show you. So this one is the trigger one. So right now I have a solid red, and I like red. Red's my favorite color. This is the mode that I use all the time generally. So basically what happens is, I also wanted some type of color to come up, right? This is an RGB keyboard after all. Well, I kind of was like, well, if I have it all red, that's kind of boring and stupid. So I decided to put trigger on, which is actually pretty nice. So if I hit this right control right here, you can see that it lights up in different colors. So if I choose a lot of keys, you can see that the colors all come in, they fade at random color, and they fade back out to red. See? Nice and colorful. I actually like that mode a lot because it's subtle. It actually allows you to see what's going on. The keyboard gives you a nice, like, it's like a history of what you actually did. I like that mode a lot. Let's go to the second mode that I actually set up. So we'll give this a second now. This is the cycle mode. So you'll see in a second that this will start changing color, and it basically slowly changes color too. So if we, maybe I didn't hit it, hold on. Oh, I hit the wrong one. That one, there we go. Whoop, there, that's better. So now if we give it a second here, you'll start to see it go to another color. It starts off as red, so it's kind of a misnomer, and you can see it's turning like orange and yellow now. So let that cycle for a little bit to show you. And if this one, I think I set up the explosion, right? So if I hit this this control key right here, boom! I like that a lot, actually. It's really nice to like show off, but it's again, I don't think it's that useful. So if you did like this Alt key right here in the center, boom! There you go. Nice little lighting effects to actually show off people, especially in a thing. So the third one is the zones. And this one doesn't do anything. It just shows off what you can actually do. So like if you were actually going to like a gaming, convention, not a convention, like an actual LAN, I don't even know if they have LAN parties anymore, but if you're going someplace to actually like put this keyboard to actually do gaming, you can have this type of setup where you're actually like, okay, I want to make sure that this zone is set up for this color, this one's this color, so you know exactly what's going on at any time. And I like that. So you can actually set up like specific keys to do it. And remember, the type of functionality this allows, you can actually do every single key a different color. I think that's a little crazy. I think the zones are way more useful, but it allows you to actually fully customize the keyboard however you actually want. So if you want it to go nuts and have all these crazy colors everywhere, you can definitely do that. I like the zones right here. It highlights my WASD keys. It highlights all the stuff around there, all the functional keys, and all the other external keys like the numpad and the actual arrow keys and stuff. All kind of cool. So the one last thing I'm going to show you, again, which you can't see because it's on the computer over there, these keys right here that were hidden behind the actual function key for the multimedia, for the volume controls, I can now just hit this key, and this key, and actually directly control the volume. And that's really cool. Now, again, because I did that, I lost the ability to have F9, F10, and F11. So if I needed to get them, I'd have to switch to another mode. So this is where I think that if they had a couple of extra keys scattered, like, imagine that this space right here and here are used for some macro keys, I think that would be a really, really great addition to this type of keyboard. But again, future kind of product improvement suggestion, there you go. Overall, keyboard's pretty cool. Let's talk about the price of this keyboard. So the MSRP of this is about $110 right now. I checked some retail sites and it's going for like about $100 right now. So this is where I say if I'm going to recommend a keyboard or not, and I said this earlier in the review, but let's just say that you already have a mechanical gaming keyboard and you're happy with it, don't buy this, because if you're already happy with the keyboard, then there's no reason to switch. If you are unhappy with your current keyboard, or you don't have a mechanical keyboard, that's where you should be focusing on my voice right now. This type of keyboard is not for everybody. Granted, it is not for everybody. If you like MMOs and you need those extra macro keys, don't get this keyboard. If you are a productivity maven, if you do gaming, and if you do all of the above and you want to use one keyboard in a nice, small, standard size package, this is something to definitely look at. All the lighting modes you get, all the increased functionality about having to actually build it into the keyboard itself, you only have to run the software once and then you never have to use the software again. Very powerful stuff. If you are in the market for a keyboard, and I'm not even talking about a gaming keyboard, if you are in the market for a regular keyboard, $100 is really nothing to spend on an input device. Input devices are one of the most important things you can buy in a computer. I don't even care what people say. It's not the graphics card, it's not the motherboard, it's not any of that. How do you interact with your computer? You do it through your monitor, your keyboard, and your mouse. Those are the three things that you are physically interacting with. And all three should be high quality to actually interact with your computer well. This keyboard is high quality. So if you're doing anything like that, great keyboard to actually get. The interesting part is that I was looking on Amazon for this, and I think they're just out of stock right now. I believe that I saw some used ones on there. I wouldn't suggest getting a used one. Just wait till they come back in stock. Again, retail price should be about $100 right now. The MSRP is $10 more, but I saw from another site that it was $100. So there you go. I'm going to have a link in the description below to actually purchase the product from Amazon right now. However, at the time of this review, it was only used products, so I'm assuming they're just out of stock right now. If you find the older keyboard that's in red, I think that was like $10 cheaper or something. Don't even buy that anymore. Just get this one. It's well worth the price. ASE Labs and ASE Publishing would like to thank HyperX for sending this product for review. If you want to purchase this product, we just said that you can look at links in the description below and on ASE Labs in the actual text summary. We'll have a link to Amazon for you right now. For ASE Labs and ASE Publishing, I'm Aaron Schatz, and thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe button right down here. It's red. It says subscribe. You should hit that, be informed of all the content as we post. As I said in the beginning of this review, if you don't have time to watch our very long, very involved reviews, we try to go through the entire product from soup to nuts to make sure that you have a great understanding when you want to purchase a product. Remember, we do these reviews for you. So if you want to give us some feedback, love to hear from you. But if you don't have time to actually watch the full review at the time that you're actually, seeing this right now, and you're like, well, crap, I don't have the time, but I really want to know what's going on with the product, easy. There's a 1-minute review. If you check the description of this video below, and generally all our reviews have a 1-minute review as well. We try to condense this entire review into one short minute. It's impossible. I'm telling you it's impossible right now. We cannot cover the amount of stuff in this entire review in 1 minute. So it's a very quick, short summary about what the keyboard's about and a very brief overview of what we think about it. You should come back and always watch the actual full review to actually get an in-depth look at the product itself. If you also want to read a text summary, description below contains a link to ASE Labs where we have a 2-paragraph text summary along with the actual video reviews in an article. Free to do that as well. But again, we do these reviews for you. We want you to make an informed decision about purchasing a product, and I hope we are doing that for you. Love to hear from you, so please send us some feedback. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.